I feel the need to start this video with an apology and a warning. I am about to talk about a subject that I have unfortunately learned I cannot be normal about. There's something about this TV show that has kept me in its grasp since 2016 that I have yet to escape from. So I'm going to try my best to seem like a normal, well-adjusted human, but if anything slips through the cracks, I'm sorry, and I warned you. Now, what is this TV show, you might ask? Well, of course, it's none other than the dearly beloved, definitely high regarded, and definitely totally not infamous Voltron Legendary Defender. Anyone who came in contact with even just the name Voltron back in 2016 to 2018 is probably familiar with what the fandom was like, but for those of you who are lucky enough to not know, I'll fill you in a little bit. Voltron Legendary Defender is a reboot of the Voltron franchise, which has had many iterations and is based on the 1981 Japanese anime Beast King Go Lion. Voltron Legendary Defender was a Netflix original, even though it's no longer on the platform, and released 8 seasons from 2016 to 2018, which looking back on is crazy that we got 8 seasons in 2.5 years. That is literally unheard of now. It follows a group of 5 characters who end up in space together after they find this blue robot mecha lion thing on Earth, and it flies them to space, and they find out there's actually 1/5 of a larger robot called Voltron, which is formed when the 5 lions, mecha robot flying lions, come together and form the big robot. And now these 5 characters, ranging from young teen to mid-20s adult, are now the Paladins of Voltron and are defending the universe from the Galra Empire that are trying to take over. But the concept isn't really too important when it comes to its infamy. The real star of the show is the ship wars. The showrunners must have put some sort of high-pitched frequency in the background of the show that only attracted people capable of being absolutely insane about fictional relationships, because that is what their fandom was made up of. With 6-ish main characters, there were countless pairings that the fandom could put together. The most popular one, though, was between the characters Keith and Lance, also known very creatively as Klance. I will not be talking about any other ships in this video because that is when I really get crazy and I am really trying to keep it together for you guys. Back in 2018, Klance reigned over not just the Voltron fandom, but the fandom space online as a whole. Klance was Tumblr's #1 ship of 2018 after being the most popular ship for 17 weeks in a row or something crazy like that. If you look up Tumblr ship list, the first image that comes up is from when Klance was #1. Basically what I'm trying to say is that people were crazy about them in a sometimes not normal way. Which, I don't know who would do that. The other important thing to note about this fandom is that it low-key hated the show. Obviously not at first, but as the seasons went on, the fanbase got kind of frustrated with the show's writing and the direction that they were taking it in. It felt like certain characters were getting a ton of character arcs while others were not, and some of the ones that did get character arcs, their stories got ruined by the endgames they ended up getting. And, of course, people were upset about the ships. Again, you gotta remember that there is 15 billion different pairings in this fandom, so if one of them becomes canon, inevitably some people are gonna be upset. But it didn't help that by the time that season 7 rolled around, Klance, the most popular ship in the fandom, and at the time all of Tumblr, was finally, officially dead. Lance, instead of completing the beautiful Rivals to Lovers arc that the fandom wanted with Keith, started dating Princess Allura, who was hot off a relationship where her boyfriend turned out to be a genocidal maniac and then died. Couple goals. Frankly, not many people were happy with this decision. Even the 5 Allura and Lance shippers were displeased with how this relationship came to fruition because it basically made Lance seem like a second choice, like a rebound to her, which his whole arc was him feeling like he was a second choice to everyone, even a 7th choice sometimes, so the fact that he was basically now a rebound for her basically kind of destroyed. I'm normal. I'm super normal. Their development left a lot to be desired and left a lot of Klance fans upset. Evidently. So now that you have some context, let me set the scene for the story that I want to tell. It's 2018. Season 7 of Voltron just aired, and while there's still one more season to go, Klance shippers' morale is finally breaking. And that's saying something, because this is the fan base that wrote a 50,000 word Bible on why Klance was going to become canon. But now, Princess Allura seems to be reciprocating Lance's feelings, and while the viewers don't know it yet, Season 8 is going to start off with them going on their first date together. Klance is not going to be canon. Klance shippers are disappointed and frustrated. While the show might not have shown it, they were led on a wild goose chase and fed literal breadcrumbs to believe that their ship had even a slight chance of becoming canon. Netflix and other people connected to the show made vague references throughout the last few seasons to kind of like keep the delusional Klance shippers just with enough hope to keep watching, because if they left, they would lose like half of their viewer base. So they had to keep them reeled in, and they did that by baiting Klance whenever they could.
The only thing I find incompatible is the ship name. It's just a K in front of Lance, guys. Come on!
And that's when two Klance shippers step in. Captain Lumen, a popular Klance artist, and Keiths on Twitter. They do what any good shipper does when their media isn't going the way that they want it to. They indulge in an AU. For anyone unaware, AU stands for Alternate Universe, which is basically where you like take your characters and stick them into another setting and kind of adapt that setting to the original show's premise, or honestly, you can kind of do whatever the fuck you want with them. There are a lot of popular AU tropes that span across all fandoms, like there's coffee shop AUs, mafia AUs, fantasy AUs, college AUs, Omegaverse AUs. What was different about this Klance AU, though, was that Captain Lumen and Keith didn't just take one of the popular tropes and stick them on Klance. They created something new and original. Introducing Leakira. Leandro and Akira are rebels fighting against mafia or cops or Galra factions, whatever, in a cyberpunk futuristic city where they fly around on hover motorbikes and are unabashedly, unashamedly in love. Obviously, this AU didn't invent cyberpunk, but it was very different in the way where it was completely starting from the ground up and reimagining these characters instead of just slapping them on a popular trope. It really was a lot more original. If you couldn't tell already, Akira is based on Keith, and Leandro is based on Lance. The name Akira comes from the name that Keith's character had originally in Beast King Go Lion. Additionally, it also taps into the fandom's headcanon that Keith is half Japanese. Leandro's name actually existed in the fandom long before Leakira's creation. In Voltron, Lance is Cuban, but his full name, Lance McLean, has rather European origins, and so a lot of people in the fandom, in like fan fictions and other AUs, headcanon that his real name is Leandro, which has Spanish origins and means Lion Man. Their exact designs varied from artist to artist, but generally they paid homage to their clothes in Voltron while having a more cyberpunk, rugged, futuristic vibe. And Akira typically had longer hair and goggles, and Leandro had like an undercut. So, I really don't know men's haircuts names, but like you can just see it on the screen. What made this AU so special though is that in all of my time in fandoms, I have never seen a fandom rally behind an original idea like they did with this one. You know, the AU started as a couple of people creating some fan art and, you know, just having this concept for fun to cope with their show not going the way that they want it to. But it blew up in the fandom. It turned into a trend of fan art, literal fan fictions and fanzines. Like, the fandom took it and ran. People got excited about seeing these characters that they love in a new setting and being able to explore the relationship between them. People got so excited about the AU, in fact, that they continued to expand it. People came up with concepts for other characters from Voltron, so it wasn't just Lance and Keith anymore, or Leandro and Akira, but they expanded it to the whole Voltron universe. What was once a fleeting fan idea was now a full-fledged concept, even with a title, Voltron Defenders of Tomorrow. The only thing I can think of off the top of my head that's kind of
editing Croza here. Emphasis on from the top of my head. I am sure some other fandom in existence has done something similar like this. Would love to hear about that, and please don't kill me for my poor wording.
comparable to this from another fandom is maybe the Harry Potter fandom, who reclaimed a bunch of characters that are kind of like in the prequel of the main series and reimagined them as their own and kind of made their own fandom, really. Obviously, Voltron is not nearly as big as Harry Potter, so they don't have quite that amount of manpower, but I think that Leakira still really stands out because it wasn't just reimagining the characters, it was reimagining the concept and the setting. It was a very original and new twist on the concept. But did you really think the Voltron fandom could have nice things? Funny. No. While Captain Lumen and Keith's originated this idea, it was the fandom as a whole that expanded upon it. And with so many, with love, delusional and frequently tone-deaf teenagers at the helm, it was doomed to spiral. Captain Lumen and Keith's no longer had control over it. Some people started to feel like some of the concepts of characters coming out from this AU were a bit questionable. In the original show, one of the main characters is named Takashi Shirogane and is canonically Japanese. Some people, for the AU, wanted to name him Hachiko, like the dog. And the reasoning behind it just kind of felt like he was being named that because they didn't know any other Japanese names, so it felt a little iffy. But what was possibly worse was, in the original show, there was a character named Naima, who was basically, deceitful and a thief. And in the AU, some people wanted to make her Romani. In addition to some questionable character choices, there were also a small handful of fans that wanted to take this a step even further. They wanted to make this a real show. While they're all taken down now for obvious reasons, there were even allegedly a Kickstarter or two created to get funding to create an independent spin-off for Defenders of Tomorrow. This immediately got people riled up. Post upon post were created, tearing down this concept, not just it being a show, but also the AU as a whole now. Remember what I mentioned earlier about the ship wars? Yeah, this just added fuel to the fire. People who were anti-klance took this as the perfect opportunity to tear down something klance related. People were crying that it was disrespectful to the writers and listing copyright laws showing that it would never be able to happen, and guys, fucking duh. Obviously an independent fan show, probably run by teenagers with little to no animation experience and definitely no copyright law experience, would never happen. But people were mad, and unfortunately this anger made its way back to the original creators of the AU. Once again, might I remind you, these people just created this concept for fun, but now people were accusing them of being disrespectful to the writers for trying to create a spin-off show which they were not involved in whatsoever. Unfortunately, both Captain Lumen and Keith's are no longer on the internet, at least not on any Voltron-related accounts, which is not necessarily just because of Leakira. The show also ended shortly after this, at the end of 2018, but it definitely still is a reflection of how toxic the fandom was at the time. Additionally, I do think it sparks an interesting conversation about fan works. When does it cross the line? I recently saw a post from an author, which I can't find for the life of me anymore, basically addressing people thinking that their upcoming novel was based off of dreary fanfiction, just because on the cover the characters kind of resembled them. And the author had to make it clear that no, it's not dreary fanfiction, and it's actually not like dreary whatsoever. So if you're expecting dreary, you're going to be disappointed if you read it. They also made the point that it's important not to accuse authors of this, because it can put fanfiction at risk of being seen as a larger copyright issue if people are profiting off of it. Fan works make fandoms so vibrant, but it's really important that they do so in a way that does not encroach on the work of the original authors. Except, you guys can do whatever the fuck you want with Harry Potter, because fuck J.K. Rowling. At the end of the day, if you're to go back to 2018 and ask a Voltron fandom member, who's the cause of this fandom being so toxic, everyone would have someone else to pin the blame to. The reality is that we were all losing our goddamn minds over 2D fictional characters. None of us were winners. But also, I would say it was the people shipping the guy with the child that he practically raised. And don't even get me fucking started